But it's not. Aren't they good though? Okay. Parallels. Book of Mormon archaeology, Hopewell, North America. Right. This is going to be very casual, guys, so just hold on, okay? Anyway, in Hopewell culture, this is what I talk about the parallels, and we find this common. Great Lakes to Florida, north and south, Kansas to New York, west to east. The burial rites, measurements, building techniques, tools, weapons, art, ancestry, religious customs, language. All these things in common. What this means is, to me, is that they covered a large area in North America. The point is, our archaeologists tell us all the Hopewell people are little like city-states unto themselves, like you have over in the Middle East. And we get, in the Book of Mormon, they all knew each other. It was a big area. We know this from Zarahemla all the way to Cumorah. It was their turf. So they covered a large area. It was one and the same people. This is the map put together by the Smithsonian, 1890s. These are the mounds and the enclosures of the Hopewell and the Adena. And what you see here is probably, the best guess, is about 10% of what was there. They're missing 90% already by the 1890s. It's just incredible how fast this stuff went down, starting in 1492. I mean, New York was being settled by 1790, and everything up there was practically gone. So it just went down really, really fast. You can see the clusters where things are. You can see East Tennessee is good. The whole Mississippi Valley is good. Southern Wisconsin, Central Ohio, real big hot spots. So when I joined the church, I always taught the Western Hemisphere model. And, you know, I did not join the church because of archaeology. I had my own personal conversion. And archaeology had nothing to do, even though I was into archaeology, but it had nothing to do with my conversion. But they told me that, you know, somewhere on the Darien Peninsula, at the 30 degrees, that Lehi came ashore. And the Book of Mormon, all the events were in South Central America. Everything, the whole 9 yards, the whole 1,000-year period covered that whole turf. And I thought, well, that's great, fine. And then they talked about the hill, but they've got 4 hill Cumorahs picked out. And that was kind of a strange thing. I said, why don't they know which hill? And that was kind of unbelievable. Then, of course, we got the trail from Moroni. After the war, he carries the plates up to present-day Palmyra area, sticks in a hill, which is also called the Second Hill Cumorah by the Mesa people guy. Nothing took place up in North America. It's all down there. Well, that's what I was taught. Wait, were you taught the same?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all the same. Okay, very good. So that's the 2-hill Cumorah theory. And that was fine. It didn't matter. I just went along doing my thing. And the Western Hemisphere. So here, what I later found out and realized that there was a problem with this. It was too big. And so as I began my studies, I did run into some other people that talked about all kinds of settings. And first of all, the Meso guys now had given up totally on South America. And they had selected a 1,000 square mile area in the Yucatan. See, this is where it all happened. The whole thing. So that's cool. And that's called the Mesoamerican model. Guys who still clung to North America looked up at the Hill Cumorah in New York as the only place it could have gone. But what they did, out of respect for the scholars at BYU, they looked at Lake Erie and Lake Ontario and said everything had to happen there. And say, well, that's kind of a problem. The whole 1,000 years, they stayed right there. That's, well, I guess it's whatever you think, but it's called the limited geography model. And I got friends that still support that. They don't go big. But for me, because of what I knew about Hopewell, I thought, geez, guys, if you're going to do that, because they latched on to Hopewell, these guys did. But when they go to New York, Hopewell starts like between 100 and 200 AD. It's late. And the Meso guys were picking on the limited guys, saying, you don't have anybody to fall back on. But we got the Maya, and they've been here, you know, it covers the time period. Limited guys did not have anything to cover their time period. So you got to look at the entire Hopewell picture, and that's what it is. That's called the Hopewell Interaction Sphere. That's the area that they cover. That's the Hopewell Mound Builders. You got to take it all. You can't cherry pick out a certain spot. And that's just my own personal thing. So here's the Mound Builders. You got late Archaic to the Adena, 3000 BC to 200 AD. Out of that area, we're going to find our Jaredite timeline. Hopewell, 550 to 400 AD. We're going to find then our Nephites, Amalekites, our Lamanites, and of course the Mississippians. they'll show up 500 years later, and that's post-Book of Mormon. Unfortunately, you go south looking for the mounds, you're going to see a lot of Mississippi mounds more than anything else because they're late and they built on top of the Nephite and the Dina locations. It's just normal. It's a normal thing to do. Everybody does it. No big deal. But here's what's really cool. The timeline. That's what I call the parallel. All of you know 600 BC is the start. 385 is the final war at Cumorah. 421, Moroni says farewell. That's the Book of Mormon timeline. Now, here's the cool thing. Here's a timeline for the Hopewell of North America. I mean, how close do we have to get? You just can't get any better than that. And the best thing of all is that this timeline is done by non-Mormon academics. So nobody can claim us, point at us, to point the finger that we're salting, what I mean? We're building up things to support the Book of Mormon. They can't do that. Because the work has been done. That's why I published Ancient American Magazine. I've been showing people for years, it's out there, just read the archaeology. There's all kinds of stuff to support the Book of Mormon. Now in the church from 1970, it's 1989, I've been in the church for about 18 years plus. I've done everything in the church calling-wise. I live in Wisconsin except be Relief Society president. I've done it all. When you got small areas, you get to wear a lot of hats. You guys know that.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're in our temple district. We don't have a temple in Wisconsin. So our temple district is Salt Lake. That's 1,400 miles one way. So we didn't get out there every year. But when we did, I went to the bookstore and my wife went to the food storage stores, which are all gone now. They're downtown. They're all gone, which is sad. And I found this book because I needed to know stuff about Joseph. I didn't have church history. So I wanted to know more about Joseph Smith. And I grabbed this book by Dean C. Jesse. And I got to tell you, I'm flipping through the book and I come across this letter that Joseph Smith writes on the Zion's Camp March. He sent it back to Emma. And he says, we arrived this morning on the banks of the Mississippi. We left the eastern part of the state of Ohio, wandering over the plains of the Nephites, recounting occasionally the history of the Book of Mormon, roving of the mountains of that once beloved people of the Lord, picking up their skulls and bones as proof of its divine authenticity, signed Joseph Smith Jr. When I read that, my 18 years in the church just collided with Hopewell. I knew something was wrong with Central America. I mean, it just, for me, it was over. There's something wrong here. And of course, when you see the Ohio trek going all the way over to, that whole, oops, back up. Come on, wrong way. Oh, man. Too relaxed up here. Slideshow, play from current slide. Okay, and I'll be back up. There. When you see that line going all the way across, I realized they just crossed the middle of the Hopewell turf. Mm-hmm. And so I was very excited. And of course, the yellow star, that's where I believe Zarahemla is, because it's in Doctrine and Covenants 125, verse 3. The Lord tells Joseph to build him another city directly across from present-day Nauvoo, on the banks of Iowa. And we know in the Book of Mormon, Zarahemla is on the west bank of the River Sidon. So for me, the Mississippi River is going to become my River Sidon. Anybody know what that red star is? Anyone guess?
Your house.
Madison.
That's where I live.
Yeah.
Oh, you got it. Karen got it. That's my home. That's where I live.
Okay.
All right. So, Hopewell Nation. There it is. And that's where I spend my time. Right there. So, what's the first reason that our archaeologists and everybody else, it doesn't matter if you're a historian or what, they've refused the Book of Mormon? And I have done a poll on this with my LDS friends. We're ready to get them to stop and talk about it. And here's the big one. I say, what is the first reason that you believe people turn away from the Book of Mormon? And this was the answer. And guess what? Mm-hmm. That's not the answer. That's not the answer. And then the second choice was this one. Mormon getting the plates from an angel. That's not the answer either. Here's where ancient American archaeology and church archaeology collides, right here. No maritime technology. Ancient man could not sail the ocean blue. That's what our archaeologists teach our kids. They couldn't do it. But yet what happened, right? Jaredites came here, right? Nephites came here, Mulekites came here. So right away, we are in odds with all of our academics who are not in the church. Because they're telling us nobody could sail here at that time. They didn't know how. Now, over the years, through Ancient American Magazine, they're just starting, now this is several years back, they're just starting now to tell us that the new buzzword in archaeology is that maybe they did come across by boat from both directions, Atlantic and the Pacific. They're just beginning to look at the boats. And I did a big article on this in Ancient American, very important. Now I gotta tell you, the whole thing about boats bothered me in the Book of Mormon for a long time, because I read in these passages like Helaman. And it came to pass timber, exceedingly scarce in the land northward. And they sent by much way by shipping. I'm thinking, my gosh, how in the world did that happen? You see, I knew the Hopewell were not an ocean shoreline people. They were an interior people. And they're talking about sailing ships. They're also talking about building ships. So this was a real, I mean, for me, this was a real thing. Okay, how am I going to get over this? What is going on? All right. Well, then I got with some of my friends in archaeology, and I found out that the waterways of North America have been changed a lot since their time. Now, this is a drawing. The size here means nothing. It's just to get the wording at the top. They can be actually the same, doesn't make any difference. But this is a survey from Squire and Davis done in the 1840s. And as you can see, what's going on here, there's the buildings of the Hopewell, but look at how far they got to go down to water. And those banks vary from 30 to 60 feet in height, depending where they are in the country. 30 to 60 feet to walk down. But it used to be right there. That's what it looked like in Book of Mormon times. And in our time today, that's what we have. That's the difference. They had the depth and the breadth to sail ships in the interior of the United States of America.
And that's confirmed by geology?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question. Meso guys can't touch this. They can't touch it. It's all there. It's fact. So lo and behold, I got somebody saying, geez, we can't find any ships. What's going on? And I did find something. I'm going to show you this first hint. I looked at anchors from the Mediterranean because I had seen some similar stones in America. Now, get a good look at the stones. It's just a limestone block. It doesn't matter what shape it is, whether they shape it or they take it natural. They got 1-holers, 2-holers, 3-holers, and sometimes they just wrap a cord around them. But here they all are, 1-hole, 2-hole, 3-hole, and of course that top one up there, that's just got a cord, big rope around it. And I have been looking at these things all over the country. Here's Wisconsin, Lake Superior. It's a 200-pounder. Okay. Lake Superior, another. These are about 150 each. Mississippi, Kentucky, Florida, Ohio, Iowa. Florida is the hot spot for anchors. This one's on the Pearl River. I was down here in 1994. This is Claudette. It's her farm, her property. That one there is about a 400-pounder. And I got to tell you, people, this was not made for a birch bark canoe. Okay?
How close is that to, like, today's river?
Oh, it's just maybe 30, 60 feet away, depending on the depth. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Where's
Right
the Pearl River?
there. Mississippi.
Okay.
Yeah, but this what I'm showing you here. She took me over to this. I'm standing on a pile of these things. I didn't know what these were. I saw the holes in the stones. I had a friend with me, and we were trying to make, well, these are posts maybe to hold up a roof or something. No, they were too irregular. It didn't make any sense. And I did not know what this was until much later. That today, unfortunately, is gone. It's now a housing development. But the state of Florida, there are so many people have them in their yards for ornaments. Look at the bottom right, the guy's address, 5006. I got this off the internet. But anchors are everywhere. So then hang on to that thought. So let's talk about Lehigh and the ship and the place of first landing. This one here, Hedelman 610, it tells us the land south was called Lehigh, the land north was Mulek. Lehigh came into the land south, Mulek came into the land north. So based on my research, if you're going to use the Hopewell for a model, this follows the Hopewell archaeology. Lehigh would have landed somewhere in Florida on the Gulf Coast. Mulek came into the St. Lawrence Seaway, and I've got that pegged with the Native Americans, but we're going to focus on Lehigh. Now, one thing that was nice, Dr. John L. Sorensen, by the way, who was a Meso guy, he did do a piece of work that was very favorable, talking about people, and he was identifying the Mulekites here in particular, coming across the Atlantic, because it was shorter distance to come here from that direction. And he says, and I quote, in my view, they traveled via the Atlantic, it is certain, and I totally agree. Wonderful, that's probably the only thing him and I ever agreed on, but it's okay. So then we look at place of first landing. Florida is also the oldest Hopewell in all of North America. So if you go down and we'll see what can we find in Hopewell. So we look down there, here's the 4 oldest sites. It's called the Deptford phase, Deptford culture. And they're all very close within each other. You know, so as you look at this here, oldest sites in North America. And I sat on this for a couple of years, and I thought to myself, you know, I just wonder, there's a passage in the Book of Mormon that I was just thinking, I wonder how this might fit. And it came to pass, we did begin to till the earth, we began to plant seeds. We did put all our seeds into the earth from the land of Jerusalem. Now that tells me that where they landed, it's got to be climately favorable to their seeds. I mean, I think that's a natural assumption. It has to be favorable. And so I was thinking, gosh, here we are in Florida. I wonder what the latitude is in Jerusalem. So I looked up Jerusalem. Here it is, runoff. The Jerusalem itself is at 31.7. So 32 degrees, you know, 31, 30, it's covering the whole area. So then I'm just going to say, okay, that's fine. There's the actual line, runs right through Jerusalem, right dead on. So I took the map and I looked at everything in Florida. Well, Jerusalem's right up there at the very tip top, but all those other lines are running through. So then I went back and I dropped them on my Florida map, and look at that. Jerusalem, and the good one's at 30 north degrees, running right through, touching 3 of them. That means there's seeds in anywhere in that yellow or gold area, really, gold or red area would have definitely flourished and popped up. There's no doubt at all. So the question is, did Lehi take care of, was he taken care of by Heavenly Father? And the answer is absolutely yes. He was taken care of. So the seeding would work very, very well. Again, the oldest sites in all of North America, I hope well, is Florida. Okay? 31.7, Jerusalem, there it is. Bingo. This is like the same climate, not a problem. And there's our 30. So now think about the anchors. That anchor stone right there is a Phoenician anchor. It's in the Lebanon Museum, which I've attended. But the Algonquins have an oral story that was absolutely incredible. And the day I found it, I just about fell off my chair. There's the reference. That's the source. And notice the date. It's published 11 years before the Book of Mormon is out. Okay, so there's no Joe Smith here. Limestone quarries in Florida, I believe, they have provided anchors for the ancient international sea trade. I mean, this is heresy to modern archaeology. John Johnson, Indian agent, the Shawnee, reported Algonquin tradition. They came to North America from across the ocean, and that white people using iron tools inhabited Florida. Homer said the Phoenicians anchored their ships with the help of a pierced stone. Then I realized where I was in Mississippi, I was standing on a quarry, a limestone quarry for an anchor. It's just incredible. And here's the Indians, here's the support. Okay? So are the Hopewell and the Nephites the same people? Let's take a look at some artifacts. 500 BC, 500 AD. When you find pipes, this is called an effigy pipe. This will tell you definitely are in the Hopewell site. These are 2 that are just very favorites of mine. The red one's from Illinois, and the other one's from, the red one is from Ohio. The greenish gray one is out of the Zelp Mound, by the way, in Illinois. And they're both exquisitely done, finely carved. Notice a little hole down here in the tip. That's where you draw off. Up on the back of the bird is a hole. Like you can see the hole here in the backside for the red one. This is right here behind his head where you pack your tobacco or whatever you're smoking, and you draw right off of here and you pump it. Now, it's not made to hold a lot. So these are not something that you would sit down and say smoke for a half hour and blow smoke rings. They're very, very short burn. So these are made for some type of special ceremonial purpose. Short puffs, and you're done. It's over. Okay.
Were they typically birds?
Oh, all kinds of animals, but birds are the most common. Birds are the most common. You guys want to ask questions? Sure, go ahead. This here was found in 1859 at the Great Circle, where we're going to go tomorrow. And this is Hebrew writing. It's totally readable all the way across, and it's on all four sides. And Hebrew scholars of the day, and just Hebrew rabbis said, yeah, this is correct. It's all kinds of, we can read this. But one thing I always say, wouldn't it be nice if you could pick up an artifact like this, roll it over on the back side, right? Have it say made in Zarahemla. Wouldn't that be awesome? Unfortunately, that's not the case. Yeah, go ahead.
I had a quick question. Going back to the seeds that they planted in the latitudes and everything, what are some of the flora that we know Jerusalem, in the Levant?
I've never compared that. It didn't say what they brought
And
over.
Florida. Okay.
So whatever was there at that time,
Okay.
they got to
Date
find it
palms.
here.
It's probably date palms.
Date palm.
They have dates.
Someone has done something on, like, what's linen made out of, like the
Flax.
Flax, yeah. And it's like, that's the amount of that we have in America. It just pales in comparison to anywhere else. It's like,
Okay.
They know what that says.
Holy of holies. God is Lord of all, eternal. I mean, it's just temple talk. The whole thing.
They think that's a plumb bug.
That's yeah, I think so. I mean, that's what it looks like. Where you guys are at in Chillicothe, they've got concrete there. It's behind the desk. I didn't ask them to pull it out. That whole crew there has changed in the last 4 years since I've been here.
Mm.
And actually, they didn't look too friendly, to tell you the truth.
No, they didn't.
So that's the concrete. That's right off the mounds. That's it. We have smelters. This guy here in Virginia, he paid out thousands of dollars, had a team come in from the university. They did all the work, did all the testing, and they came back 150 AD, complete iron smelter right in Virginia. We've got like a good 13 smelters in Ohio, worked up by Bill Connor. And they've never been examined by academia. They blow them off as French and Indian smelters of the Revolutionary War and all that period.
that's what the guy said at the museum.
They
You
couldn't
know, it
smell.
goes through all how amazing these Native Americans were and all the stuff that they can do, and then he adds, "Oh, but we know they didn't smelt."
Yeah, we don't just smell. Well, I got news right now. Ladies, this is for you. 2 mounds in Ohio, 48,000 pearls, 100,000 pearls taken out. And then we got pearls in Fort Nephi. There you go. Freshwater pearls. And they had them by them, I'm going to say millions. I mean, it won't take long. In fact, just in 2 mounds. Okay? Well, this is good. These lamps are all from the Mediterranean, except one. I'm going to give you a count to 5. Make your pick. Is it door number 1? Is it door number 2? Take your pick.
Can't tell though.
That's the idea.
I guess.
Okay, you got your pick. Okay, here we go. Who thinks it's number 1? Let me see your hand. Anybody pick 2? Anybody pick 3? Anybody pick 4?
I picked 4.
Anybody pick 5? Anybody pick 6? Anybody pick 7? Okay, here it is. Ready? Ta-da! It's number 4.
Because it's got the bird on it, that's why I picked it.
That's a lion.
Oh, is it?
It's a lion.
Oh, it's a lion.
Yeah.
Oh, I was looking at it backwards. It looked like a bird.
No, it's a lion.
Oh, it's a lion.
I see what-
Yeah.
I see.
Oh, I see the tail now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guess where that came from? Little Miami River.
Real.
I got it off of farmer.
That's
It's
Ohio.
yours?
You guys,
Wow.
you guys that are leaving, I wasn't going to pull this out until we get down there to show Pat and a couple of the guys that are going to be present. But I brought it.
Wow.
This
Whoa.
year.
Oh,
I
wow.
can't.
kidding.
This is my socks.
Nice.
My old socks. I did wash the sock. I brought it so you could see it. Hard to get out, but it's really a safe way. They fold it over a couple of times. Keeps it safe. There it is.
Holy smokes.
Oh, it's bigger than I thought.
You
Oh, that's
could-
so
you could-
cool.
Yeah. You could put this in any museum in the Mediterranean and they wouldn't know the difference. I mean, it is exactly the same size. And with the lion, it's like the lion of number 1 is a lion, and number 4 is a lion. We're just facing different directions. So this will pass it over. Just hang it on carefully.
And that's been dated to.
Oh, I haven't dated anything. I haven't.
Oh.
I won't own anybody for a track.
Yeah.
How'd you get it?
I got it from a farmer in Ohio.
Wow.
Wow.
I got 2 farmers that picked for me.
What do you pick?
Plow, neighbors, they watch. They find something for me. Little Miami River, right at Fort Ancient.
You can move your chair closer so you can run your neck.
Okay.
Wow. That's good.
We'll turn the lights on, I'll take a picture of Kim.
Let's see pretty good.
Okay? I'll just put it on the bed. All right. Okay, next one. This is a good one. This is the Potawatomi Indians of northern Indiana and southern Michigan. This came out of their cave. They now have it in their one of their little museums. Obviously, what is this, people?
Menorah.
When you talk to the Potawatomi, they will tell you this is a symbol of our ancient ancestors. The official archaeological ID on this rock is a fanciful pitchfork. Yeah, it just gets worse. I mean, it gets worse. Here's our hero, Dr. Cyrus Gordon, one of the top figures, not just in the U.S., but in Europe as well, well respected in Europe. When Henriette Mertz saw the Bat Creek stone, just like you see it right there, it was supposedly a Cherokee writing, and for some reason, whether she dropped her magazine or turned it upside down, and when you turn it over, you can see that it's Paleo-Hebrew. And that's what she saw. And she contacted Gordon, and Gordon went to the Smithsonian and had him, you can see he's touching his little pinky finger, he's showing the letters, he's translating, and he told the curator at Smithsonian, this is not Cherokee, this is Hebrew, it's Paleo-Hebrew, and it's very, very old. And the guys they took out of the mound, it was like 100 AD, so you can use that for the dating, 100 AD, for the stone, and they said, thank you very much. And when he left, they took the stone, took it back out to the museum, they put it right back upside down and said Cherokee writing. And then, when we got it to the Cherokee Nation in at Cherokee, North Carolina, they now have it. It took us, oh my gosh, 4 years. And it's down there on display. It is still upside down, but they put mirrors on it so you see it right side up. That's the whole deal. That was one of the deals for the Smithsonian. They had to keep it upside down on display. I don't, they're just terrible guys. And then the shekel from the Jewish war, it's not from here, it's from Israel. And it was just by chance that I came onto this, and I got a better photograph down in the right corner, as you can see. And here's the Bat Creek stone. And I was looking at it really close, and I'm gonna take that coin and make that coin a reverse. And I thought, holy mackerel, what the heck is going on here? And I saw the letters; they looked like the same. How about that one? How about that one? What do you think? Are these the same?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing, whatever it is.
Oops. They're all the same. I guess I'm in a bigger for now. I mean, how hard was that? I mean, there it is. It's a match from a coin in Israel. 100 AD, North America. Holy Stone. 10 Commandments. On the front, side, and the back. It's called Block Hebrew. Totally readable. You find it at the Druid disc houses, or they gave a talk in it at the Tabernacle in 1870. And they figured this had to be something to do with the law of Moses. Orson Pratt was all over this thing. Absolutely thought this. He said it was absolutely legitimate. And so, take a good look at it. So I'm going to show you a comparison.
And where was this one found, Wayne?
At 12 miles from the Great Circle. I'm gonna get you as close as I can because the big mound has been taken down. It's the largest stone mound in North America, and Interstate 71 or 2, whatever it is, went right through it. Unbelievable. Lost the whole thing. So anyway, I'm in Egypt. Oh, excuse me, I'm in Egypt. I'm in Italy. I'm at the, this is the Museum of the Vatican. And I'm walking through here, and I spot two images that really got my attention. So I'm going to blow both of those up. There's one, there's two, and I'm going to put that Decalogue stone right in the middle to compare. What do you think, guys? Is that a parallel?
Yeah.
I mean, look at that. Unbelievable. North America. We got elephants all over the place. We got elephants, we got pipes, we got gorgets, we have effigy elephants, we have cave elephants, pictographs, and we got dirt elephants like the tournament up in the top right corner, which, by the way, is now just a pile of dirt. They did not put it back together. And notice it's in a henge, which is a jaredite or Adena item, and there he is, elephants.
So
Then-
Wayne, you got any guess at what a Curulon or a Cumum is?
All I've heard from Hebrew people is that because of the way it's stacked in the Book of Mormon, as it gets bigger, it's a larger elephant. Next up, it's a larger beast. So I don't know how big it's going to be.
Some of those artifacts, the elephants look a little bit different too.
Well, they are different.
Yeah, because
Yeah, back up.
some
Look
of
at the
them have
pipe.
like slope backs, like
There's 2 pipes in Iowa, and both of the elephants are different on the pipes.
so. There's your Curulon.
One's different with
Yeah.
a pipe with a tusk. One's different with a tail. The mastodon is bigger, so the mastodon might have been the biggest one, but then you got 2 smaller.
One has a humped back, the other doesn't.
Yeah,
The other
there's a
doesn't.
mastodon up there.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I've got 4 books from the early Ohio guys, and as you can see up here, the first block, Mound Builders contemporary with the mastodon in all probability, that they tamed the beast. The mastodon are found in the same place as the Mound Builders, in the same localities, the same state of preservation. And then the bottom one, the guy has a copper relic which has never surfaced, but he saw it. He said it's got an elephant engraved upon it, and it's in harness to do work.
Wow.
And I thought when I see the big geometrics, which you guys are going to see tomorrow, I see the elephants in there like the bulldozers, the earth movers. I mean, the things are so big. It's so well. When you see it tomorrow, you know what I'm talking about. Because they're massive. They're huge, absolutely huge. And we got cattle. This is a cave in Arkansas. I mean, we got cattle, and there they are. How would this guy get here if someone didn't see that? Okay, and how is that possible? And of course, here it is today. Same guy. Horses. Dr. Jones did the work on the horses with 2 other friends. He said we got 6,000 BC to 1481. The horses were here the whole time. Before Columbus, that all these radiometrically dated Equus remains were found in North America only. And using state-of-the-art dating methods along with other researchers, they found radiometrically dated evidence for the existence of a horse in North America after the Ice Age. It's always believed they went out with the Ice Age. But they're saying that's not true. They were here. They got the bones to prove it with the dating. Dr. Stephen Jones of BYU. He's a good guy. He's a friend of mine. I know him well.
Didn't you say yesterday that? Didn't you say yesterday that when Lewis and Clark reached Oregon or Washington or whatever, that when they were starving?
The Nez Perce.
Yeah, they reached the Nez Perce, who saved them from starving. The Nez Perce were on horses, and the Nez Perce said that Lewis and Clark were the first white men they'd ever seen.
Yeah, they're on horseback.
They were on horses.
Pretty cool. It's in the diary. We also have parakeets in the area where the Hopewell are at. We find parakeets somehow sacrificed in the Hopewell burials, and that tells us that it had to be a warmer climate. The parakeets could not be here if we had the climate we have today. They would not be here. Matter of fact, when we first got here, they were basically down in the very bottom of the Gulf states and into Florida, and it is believed today that they have actually gone extinct as of 1939. The North American parakeet is no longer. And what we find in Hopewell, as you guys saw them at Chillicothe, we got parrots and parakeets all over the place. And if you're going to have the law of Moses, you got to have sheep. We got sheep bones here at Kip Island in New York, sacrificing sheep. Law of Moses. This is a good one here. It never says migrating in the Book of Mormon, but it talks about the beasts going north and south. The food, cold, winter, that type of thing. Back and forth, back and forth. So they are migrating. But the point is, there's no migrating beasts in Central America or South America. Only in North America. So we got migrating beasts. Where do the beasts have to be? Got to be in North America. Pretty simple. After many days, their dead bodies are heaped upon the face of the earth. They recover the shallow covering. This is what a burial mound looks like. That's been a battle mound. These are men, women, and children, all put to death, thrown in a heap, covered over. We have these throughout the entire Hopewell area. But the ones that are really, really old and they've started to really decay, a farmer will have basically a hill of fertilizer on his farm. And they do get taken down and used to fertilize the area. How great was their disappointment, for behold, the Nephites had dug up a ridge of earth round about them, which was so high that the Lamanites could not cast their stones or arrows. How do you cast an arrow? That kind of bothered me for a while. I did not know, but then I realized what they were doing. So casting arrows, casting stones, very important. And I realized they're throwing the atlatl, an arrow the size of a spear, but they give it about 10 times the penetrating power by using the throwing stick. Stronger than the bow. Unbelievable. Deadly weapon. Very deadly. And this is why Captain Moroni had to build forts. They could not face the Lamanites in open combat because the arrows would come in and just devastate everybody. They had to have something to hide behind. And the forts took away the effectiveness of the atlatl. But the Nephites had the bow and arrow. Because here in Helaman, they're trying to hit good old Samuel. And he says they shot arrows at him. Nowhere else do you see shooting of arrows except for the Nephites. Arrows. These are cold hammered pieces. These are all Hopewell. Notice the hole in the bottom, it's a pin to hold them on. Wood, of course, is jammed up in that bent area you see there. These are cold hammered, they are not forged. It's a process we cannot replicate today. We do not know how they made them hard once they shaped them. We do not know how they did it. But they're very, very strong. And we got swords, people. And not just swords, we have scimitars. That's the curved blade. And there's your scriptures. Scimitars and swords. I can show you about 13 different collections where guys have swords in Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan. They're out there. Look at that guy. Walking his dog on Lake Superior shoreline. Found that thing sticking up out of the sand. Look at that. Isn't that terrific? Head plates, breastplates, girded. The Hope will have head plates. You can see this is the back of the head, this is the crown, here's the forehead in the front. They had a leather cap or cloth and was held with grommets. These are grommets. This here went around your ear, and this would come down your cheekbone. Come right down your cheekbone. So it's kind of like a floppy helmet to put on and tie on, as well as were the breastplates. This right here, as soon as I saw this, I knew exactly what was going on. You pull through a knotted cord and then you cinch. Pull through a knotted cord and you cinch. And this goes around your neck to stabilize the plate. Tie it again, go around your neck. Oftentimes though, there'll be 2 more holes here and there'll be 2 more pieces going right down a man's torso. 3 layers. Imagine like a shellfish, like a shrimp or a lobster. How it overlaps the exoskeleton. This is an arm shield. The photo here is too poor to see, but if you up here, there's little teeny holes in it all the way around. This was sewn onto a garment, like a jacket you'd put on with your arm shield already attached, as well as over your shoulder blades. Already attached on your garment, put it on and tie it, like you're suiting up to go play football. A garment. When Alma had done all this, he departed out of the land of Zarahemla to go into the land of Malek, and it came to pass he was never heard of more. Now this is Alma Senior. Well, good news for Alma Junior. When it came his time, he went looking for Dad and he found him, and we know where the burial is, and we got a raised monument to Dad and to Junior. Has anybody ever seen that before? Anybody? Well, here it is. How's that? That's Alma, Iowa. I slammed on the brakes. I had to go back and get that one.
I was gonna say this is gonna be hard to find because it may have been translated.
That's right. Yeah, that was a good one. I like that. Okay, we're going to look at the fort, 72 BC. This wall you're looking at here, each one of those posts is sitting in where the post mole actually stood on this fort. Here's just some real scriptures. Alma 48 up on the top down to 56. We see places of resort, throwing up banks of earth, building walls of stone, depth of the ditch, place of entrance. Timbers built to the height of a man, towers to be erected, preparing places of resort, casting up walls round about, making fortification and fortifying the cities. Moroni started this in 72 BC. This is what took away the Atlal weapon, its effectiveness. Now, it was still a good killer thing, but as long as you had walls and stayed behind them, it really helped the Nephites a lot, and it slowed down the advance of the Lamanites big time. And so here's that same area. He's covering and building fortifications throughout all the land and the forts. Here's where you guys were at today. This is Fort Ancient. The lines there shows where the ditch used to be. It's 24 feet today. It used to be a 30 feet, 60-foot base on the bottom, going all the way across. Here's a ditch. Tell me if that ditch isn't big.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge, massive, and they're just almost exactly perfect within just a foot or two. These guys were real architects that put these up. And I show this primarily because of this. That's where you get your post mold. The logs are rotted. The best thing is to do when one burns down, because then the ash from the fire will preserve the wood inside if it doesn't burn all the way through. And that'll give us correct carbon dates. And again, down the bottom, that's the same thing. Posts were going to put in the actual spot where the log actually stood, so you can see how close the towers are. And they were also covered with, oftentimes, not every time, but they had a covering, some type of plaster, or dare we say some kind of concrete, I don't know. I've just seen stuff come from in the mounds, not on the wall itself, but they were covered with some type of covering to retard fire. And they were prepared, the body of their strongest men, their swords and their slings to smite down all who should attempt to come in their place of security by the place of entrance. This was designed on purpose by Captain Moroni. Very successful. And that's what it looks like. That's where the enclosure is. Actually, it's a maze. You force them to fight them on their turf. Notice that the brown is all elevation, like you saw at Fort Ancient today. The only way to approach this place is the very top area to walk in. Let's take a look. The red guys are attacking, the blue guys are defending. So right away, the red guys are going to go through a squeeze, because you can't step off in a brown area. You're going to slip down the slippery slope. So when you come through there, you're going to be an easy target for the blue guys. And then you get inside, now you're in a crossfire. So you got to have a lot of men to run in there, because the casualties are going to be heavy. Even if you're not dead, the wounds are going to take you out of action. And then it even gets worse. You're still in a crossfire. And confusion. You don't know, do you go to the left, do you go to the right, what do you do? This is what they did. Now, if they had enough men to force through to the actual opening, all the Nephites had to do now was to stand here and plug up the holes. And now you got fish in a barrel. This was effective for the Nephites for about, I'm going to say, about 200 years. This kept the Lamanites at bay because they're always more numerous than the Nephites. Very effective. Very, very effective. And on Thursday, when we go to Pollock, if we make it there, this guy here did the work on Pollock, and he says the enclosure itself is circular, built upon a stockade of burned, sturdy logs. This is evidence of Hopewell earthworks used as a defensive enclosure. Remember what I told you? They think they're all churches, sacred sites. And this guy said, hey man, I think these things might have been forts. Even though the Indians and the early pioneers of the 1800s have been telling them all these years, these are forts, And they're just now starting to listen.
But Wayne, don't they know that because Hopewell civilization was vast and then basically wiped out, don't the archaeologists even concede like, well, at some point there were great wars with these people? I mean, how do they
kind of think they
explain?
just faded away and decided to become hunter-gatherers. They got sick of building.
This is Judy.
Even though they were vast and then just reached an abrupt
Yeah,
end.
They just faded off. Faded off. Oh, could I get a glass of water? I'm choking up. You got a glass I can use? Thank you. When we get back. I give you a hamburger. I thought she wanted a hamburger.
Same water?
Just a glass of water, please.
Hopefully it's not for me, Palestine.
Yikes. Hey, you guys had trouble getting your cold water cold? Like hot being on both sides?
Uh-uh.
No?
No.
I have hot water, I can wait about 10 minutes in my shower if I can get a hot water.
Are you kidding?
Yeah, I can't control it.
Oh, you need to tell them. Well,
What are they gonna do?
fix that while you're gone.
Let's say, well, turn your water on, Mr. Mean, let it run. Fixed.
Mine comes on like immediately hot. Once in there,
Crazy. Okay, this is Power Earthworks.
How's that sandwich?
Oh, he's not back yet.
Yeah, wait a minute.
How's that White Castle?
I liked it.
All the onions and everything.
Do you have White Castle in Wisconsin?
Yes.
You know?
The one you guys need to try is Gold Star Chili, and I don't see any up here. I mean, close by.
Gold Star chili?
Yeah,
It's kind of a,
it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
Cincinnati style chili,
oh yeah.
so. Are you staying?
I'll be here through Friday, but I won't make it down to Cincinnati.
Yeah.
When is your flight on
You
Friday?
should find the closest
8
one.
p.m.
Oh, good. So are you're taking the same flight out of here that they are tomorrow? Aren't they both 8?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Pollock Earthworks. This is what it looked like with the survey. Notice Massey's Creek, how small it is. You can see the bank on the other side. And then on the bottom side, that one's completely dried up, which means that that was the way it was when they were there. They can be attacked from any direction. You step across the creek, you can come across the dry channel. It doesn't matter. However, that's not how it was. There's your creek beds, okay? Right there. So the guys are gonna attack from the front. That's the place of entrance. That's where they gotta go after them, right there. And those are called redoubts. The back line is elevated up probably about 10 or 12 feet higher than the front. So the guys up in the back wall can also shoot arrows down over the heads of the guys below them. And that's the back entrance right there. To get out if it fails, because they could then sail away in their boats. That's what it would look like in Book of Mormon days. Now that makes sense. See the cliff on the bottom, 30 feet high, they don't have to barricade up there. They just got the walls and the low spots. That's all. That's Pollock. This is Pollock. That's probably what it looks like today because there's no leaves. It actually might be a little ahead of what we're doing, but we got to get there quick. And this also had a walkway of flat stones. You can see the berms in the back. This has never been plowed. It's never been knocked down. It's really pristine. That's a stone walkway. I'm standing in the entranceway. You can see the mounds, the berms on both sides. I'm gonna go up on top so you can see how high it is. I mean, they're really good shape. And it's just great. I love this place. There's the height. Now, what I'm gonna do in Photoshop, I will take this actual photograph. The trees will stay the trees, the grass and leaves will stay the grass and leaves. But I'm gonna put what I think a Hopewell fort would have looked like sitting right there on that gateway. This is my recreation. The only thing here that's a complete guess is the door. We do not know what they have for doors. This is a complete guess. But we know they had square structures for towers. We know the walls here for the height of a man. And we know they laid down flat chunks of limestone to retard digging and erosion from weather. And here's your walkway, all walking in. And all that's been verified. What do you think of that?
Mhm.
Pretty awesome, huh?
That's awesome.
Recognize this today, right, guys?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, there's your entrance to the south gate. And of course, we got our mystery guys are right in here buried. There's 6 of them. And there's the recreation. Walking in the south gate. And I'll put them side by side so you can see them together. There you go. So it's not real fanciful. I think it's pretty close. Pretty darn close. And again, we hear the circles there, 51, 55, 58, 84-1. Those are post moles that were identified by Robert Connolly and Patricia. And they came out of Illinois because Ohio guys won't do the work. If they did, they'd be fired by the state archaeologist because he won't allow them to do it. The yellow area up there, that is the house cluster where people lived in this fortification. It was not 10 families, it was a whole bunch. Look at the dates. They got dating from 390 all the way down to 380 of people living in the North Fort. That's total Book of Mormon timeline. I mean, it's total. You just can't ask anything better. It's awesome.
So the Ohio head archaeologist won't allow it because it goes against his narrative that
That's
it was
correct.
a place of worship,
That's right. You'll get run out. You get fired. No funny, they'll choke you off.
even though it's called Fort Ancient.
That's right. Right. So I like this because at
He
380
should maybe retire. He's not very good.
you got 380, they're done, and you got a 385, only 5-year break, you know. I think that's really cool. I love it. Carlisle Fort. Now Carlisle has been hurt real bad. This is the berm. It's still there, but it's very, very flat, and it's just, you know, like calf high. It's low, but you can still walk it all the way around. It's a big one. It had stones, and the stones, there's 3 towns around it, and all the towns took stone off of Carlisle. And they had stone houses in the interior. They stripped everything down. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stick a stockade up there for you. Okay, there it is. Run along the top. But now, if you're a military man, are you going to leave those trees in front for your enemy to sneak up real close to the walls? Not a chance. They got to go. So I'm going to take the trees out with Photoshop. There you go. Now, by doing that, Captain Moroni, I mean, we're talking, I don't know how many forts he put up, how many cities he you know, protected, but it had to be in the hundreds. And so what you're going to have, all the tops of the forts left over, the brush, you're going to have to burn all that brush to get rid of it. And scientists from Ohio, West Virginia, look what they did. They found stalagmites standing on the floor of caves, and through the dripping water, they could match the carbon to the date. And they said by 100 BC, Book of Mormon timeline, we had smog in the Ohio Valley. Left a carbon footprint. And that's done by the scientists. Isn't that great?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what a testimony to Captain Moroni. It's perfect. Just perfect. So here we go. Got bad air, even back in these times. Of course, here's I show these because of the geometrics. It doesn't matter where they built it. They all built in the same way. They can match their own construction. These guys were not slouches when it comes to survey and math, and geometry. They're awesome. And they call all these Hopewell, but I am totally convinced these are all built by Adina. Hopewell show up, and they're used then by themselves because they're on the right equinoxes, solstices, and all the various things they want to check in the sky. And here they are. And there's more. I just grabbed a few just to show you.
Just curious,
Okay.
what makes you think it was Adina? Is there something that was,
Oh, the dating. And we'll get to some more in a little bit. But my first time was way back about probably 10 years ago. They cut a trench to the Great Circle, which you're going to see tomorrow, and they dated the material. They took out the trench. They had a it was a covered waterway to hold water. Cement, if you want to call it, or some kind of plaster, but they could date the stuff. and it came out to 800 BC. That's definitely Adena. There's no doubt about it. Here's the site porch where you guys are at. And I do this to show in scale how big site really is. Notice you got these other things going around the side there. So we're going to go ahead and put the Great Pyramid in the square. That's the Pyramid of Egypt. It's not as big as a square.
Wow.
And there's Stonehenge and the Roman Colosseum. There it is. And we'll throw in the Statue of Liberty just for kicks. Now you can begin to appreciate how big these things are. I mean, they're just massive. Just massive. And then we've got here the city of Lehi. I got a question mark. I can't say that it is, but it's the only one that is extremely different from all the others. This guy right here. And they actually called it the Hanukkah earthworks by our early people. They called it that. Oil lamp. Recognize those markings?
Yep.
Okay. I mean, need I say more? It's wow. It's very unusual. Very unusual. East Fork of the Little Miami. It's just down from Fort Ancient, where this was at. Okay.
So that menorah has 9. That one.
Yeah, we did.
And there's some menorahs with a different number.
7 is more common.
Okay. Is that significant in any way, or?
I don't know if that's a Jewish person.
Yeah.
I've never been asked. I don't know. Here's Cornstalk. He's in a lot of books, well recorded, well documented. That Tennessee and the country had been inhabited by white people, which they didn't know nothing about the arts. They had a bloody contest. They exterminated them, and their graves now are unknown people. That the forts had not been built by the Indians, but come down from a very long ago people who are of a white complexion, and there's your reference. Prehistoric men of Kentucky. Algonquian tradition. They paint their heads red to go into war. And of course, it's exactly what our Lamanites did. Mark themselves with red on their foreheads. Still happening 1,400 years later. No change. This one here is one of my favorites, language as an artifact. We first go to Dr. Brian Stubbs of Eastern Utah, Blanding, Utah. He says, the strength of language evidence is that if enough of it has been preserved to demonstrate linguistically, then language is among the strongest kinds of evidence. Language families cannot be fabricated. Written records unearthed in the Americas are often labeled hoaxes. The language ties, when apparent, show specific ties from ancient to modern times, and the thousands of speakers of the related languages are beyond fabrication. No hoaxes, no fakes. or IAH. Name is characteristic of many Hebrew words. Look at the names. You recognize all these names. Of course, Old Testament, Isaiah, Noah, Terah, Methuselah, Book of Mormon, Mosiah, Zerahemnah, Micaiah, Nephiah, etc., right? AH. Now, these are names of real Indian chiefs of the Algonquin family. They all end in AH. This is what he's talking about right here. You cannot fake this out. 1,400 years later, we still have the same thing in the languages of the names. The sound, AH. Or even just the drop the H, same. Okay? And this right here is pretty good. This is a dictionary. Early people in the 1600s and the 1700s, they made a dictionary to try to get the Algonquin to understand English and for them to understand Algonquin. They actually put a dictionary together. Very, very successful. But look at the words. We've got Ripley Ancome from the Book of Mormon, but in the new dictionary, the Algonquins, when they call a river, I'm not going to try to pronounce that, but RIP is in front of it. And for their lake, the same thing, RIP. And then, of course, for the Book of Mormon, we got Ripla for a hill, and we got Riplakish for your lake king. So, big or great, that kind of thing. RIP, very, very significant. The RIP prefix. That's where you find it. And then, of course, we got the anti-transcript. Supposedly, this is the actual writing from the plates. This is what it looked like. Now, I think this is kind of funny. We don't realize how precious paper was in their days. But the guy who wrote this down, I don't know who did it, whether it was Martin Harris wrote it or Joseph did it, or whoever did, I don't know which one. But as they wrote big, Notice they go down. They realize they're going to run out of paper. They get smaller, smaller, and very teeny on the bottom. They're going to run out of paper. Isn't this kind of neat? But lo and behold, we find out the Micmac have a thing called the Book of Prayers put together by the early Jesuit priests. The Anthon transcript is on one side, the Micmac is on the other. Look at the comparisons. Some of the letters are exact. They're very, very close. Is the Micmac speaking the language of the Book of Mormon? That's the question. That's amazing. This was found out by Barry Fell. He also looked at it, says it's evident that the Micmac hieroglyphs must already have been transmitted to North America more than 2,000 years ago, when they were still in use in Egypt. And it's in his book, America BC. And surprise, the first Bible printed in America was written in Algonquin, done by John Eliot. Spent 12 years of his life to do it. Isn't that incredible? Not English, not French, Native American. This was in the Smithsonian. I think there's only 2 that exist. The other one's in the Peabody Museum, Massachusetts. And then we got Charles C. Mann talking about glottochronology. He says the attempt to estimate how long ago 2 languages separated from a common ancestor by evaluating the degree of divergence in a list of keywords. Linguists applied this technique to Algonquin dictionaries compiled by early colonists. The results indicated that the various Algonquin languages in New England all date back to a common ancestor that appeared in the Northeast a few centuries before who? Christ. And then he goes on and says this ancestral language may derive from what is known as Hopewell culture. I mean, we're just hitting the right buttons all the way around here. It's just awesome. This is a good one too. Following the law of Moses. I'm in Israel with Bruce Porter on a tour. Egypt, Palestine, everywhere. And here we were at Megiddo Hotel, and there's about 17 or 18 layers here of occupation, maybe even more. But while we're there, our guide, a Jewish guide, is Rabbi Wallenstein. He's pointing out these altars, and he said this is a Canaanite altar, this is a Sumerian altar, this is a Jewish altar, and blah blah blah. So finally, one of the gals in our bus said, "Rabbi, I can't tell the difference between altars." He says, "Well, there's only one thing you can do." He says, "First of all, some of them do use, like the Israelites, natural stone. It's all there. But all the people who are not Israeli, they use staircases or steps to get to the top of their altars." And he says, using steps to go to our altars is against the law of Moses. Well, when he said that, I just thought, this guy's off his rocker. Give me a break. Steps is against the law of Moses? What's that got to do with anything? So that night, I'm back at the hotel with Bruce Porter, and we're digging through our Old Testament. We're looking. Bruce says he's seen it before. He knows it's there. And sure enough, Bruce found it. Neither shall go up by steps unto my altar, that thy nakedness be not discovered thereon. You see, a lot of the platforms are so high, the people, wives and the kids, are gathered around the altar itself. It's 8, 9, 10, 12 feet, sometimes higher. And the men don't wear undergarments under their kilts, so they're only knee length. So as they go up those staircases to get to the top of those things, their privates can be seen. And the Lord says, can't do that. So he said, well, how do you get up there? And he said, well, the rabbi said, well, very simple. They built long approaches by using ramps. Ramps. And of course, a lower altar. Well, when he said that, my first thoughts, I'm thinking, boy, am I glad I'm not a Mesoamerica guy, right? These are all in violation of the law of Moses. Every temple is in violation, period. The Nephites would have never built this to worship God.
There you go, Jake.
There's no way. Not going to happen. And worst of all, half of them or more are post-Book of Mormon. And these things are all over our paintings and our pictures and our literature. Oh my gosh. It's just bad. It's just bad. But then when he said ramps, my thoughts went straight back to Ohio, because the temple plots in Ohio all have ramps. And most of them are like around 5 feet high. Lower ramps, lower temple blocks to keep the law of Moses sacred. But then there's more. The natural stones. He said if you lay a tool on the stone and cut it, you can't use it in your altar. It has to be completely natural. And we find this here. If thou wilt make a mark, make me an altar of stone, thou shalt not build a hewn stone. For if thou lift thy tool upon it, thou hast polluted it. I thought, wow. What's up with that? Okay. So I checked out, I talked to several anthropologists. They said they've never seen a natural stone altar anywhere on the Mayan, Aztec, or Inca structures, period. Instead, you find very skilled, intricate carvings, but these are against the law of Moses. The Nephites would never have used this. And this had to be really serious and important to Heavenly Father, because we find the same thing repeated in Deuteronomy, telling you don't build that altar of bad stones, no tools, they gotta be whole. Again in Joshua, altar of whole stones, period. Okay, no iron. Bad, bad. So then I started paying attention to altars. I saw this one here in the Negev Desert, Temple of Arad. And I thought to myself, what in the world can I do to find a Nephite altar? Now, in Hopewell country, a lot of guys talked about altars underneath the mounds as they uncovered them. But they were all torn down. All the images I saw, they were torn. They were looking for more artifacts inside the altar, except one. Good old Chatron. There it is. And it's a match. It is a complete match. Matter of fact, they tried to dig it out from the bottom. They were going to take it and put it in a museum, which would have been awesome, but they couldn't do it. It was just too heavy, too much work. This has got reburied, and it's under a mound inside the city limits of Chillicothe, Ohio. That's where it is. I don't know where it's at in town. If I did, I'd take people there. That's where the altar is. It's inside Chillicothe, Ohio. Now, once in a while, I'm on a dig and it's a Sunday, we get rained out or whatever, and I get to go to church. I got a friend of mine who was a non-member, an archaeologist, to go to church with me. Curious. But this guy was sharp to archaeology. He understood what I was doing. He knew about Book of Mormon. He understood Hopewell. He understood Adena and all that stuff and the timeline of the Maya, etc., etc. So we go walk into church. I think we're in Alney, Illinois. I'm not sure which town. But we're walking in, and this is hanging right in the foyer. You guys have all seen this, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And just as we get in there, he grabs me by the arm and he says, "Hey, Wayne, you didn't tell me Jesus came twice." I said, "What are you talking about?" Well, he says, "Right there. Look at that. That's Chichen Itza in the background by the mountains. You guys see that? That's 900 AD back there." I said, "What?" I said, "Oh my gosh, of course." I said, "Just let's go to Sacramento, I'll tell you after church." So he recognized that, you see, and he knew that for that to be accurate, it had to be 900 AD or after. So what I did, I just went home. I said, "Okay, there's your 900 AD. I agree. There's that building sitting way in the back. Now, if I had this painting in my home, and if I could do this to it, I would hang it up in my house, because there's nothing wrong with it. It's fine. It's perfect, because Jesus went everywhere." A lot of people think that we're only thinking that Jesus stopped in North America. And I said, "Well, no, that's wrong, man. Because look at the scriptures. He's in Israel, and he tells his own 12 disciples that he has other sheep to go see, which is you. And then I'm here talking to you, and I'm telling you today that I have other sheep to go see that it's not in this land." So he's going everywhere. So yeah, he went into Central America. He went into South America. He went into China and probably Japan and maybe Norway and England. Who knows? He went everywhere he possibly could. Wherever Father sent him, he went everywhere. But at 34 AD, I could hang this in my house, and this would be a lovely painting. But I can't hang that one. Can't do it. Okay? Come on in plain sight. 1812. Again, Book of Mormon has not been put out. This is the governor of the state. He's seeing all these artifacts come out of Western New York. The stuff that Basil guy says there's nothing out there. He said these ancient people, if they're ever obtained, will be derived from an inscription of stone or metals, which have withstood the rust of time. How right he was, how prophetic a statement he made. If you go look in the newspapers of the day, guys, there are many. And these are so small, I couldn't blow them up anyway at the register where I was at in the newspaper, digging these out. But you got the name of the paper. People were coming in all the time and telling what they found on their farms as they broke the sod for the first time, or they cut down mounds or whatever. And there's artifacts all over Western New York. I mean, just everywhere. Numerous. Kathy Burris witnessed when they were undoing the face to make the walkway diagonally up to the Hill Cumorah to the parking lot and then over. While they were there, she saw pailfuls of arrowheads come out of the ground. And they were stored in the boxes and put into the visitor center, and all those were taken back to Utah. Nothing to look at. They didn't save any to put on display. They should have. But they took them all back to Salt Lake, and people go their day and say, well, there's nothing here. There's nothing here. Here's my guy I told some of you about, the guy in Montpelier, Idaho. He went, after the Korean War, he was one of the first guys to dig pits for the lightning to sit up and shoot up for the Hill Cumorah pageant in Palmyra. He talks about digging the ground. They dug up pailfuls, every shovelful of arrowheads. And they also found a very unusual axe head. All that went back to Salt Lake, never to be seen again. And he said, if people want to call me, he said, call me. I said, no, I won't do that to you, but I'll put your address up. He said, that would be fine. So if you want to talk to him about it, there it is. And I haven't talked to him since COVID hit, so whether he's still with it, he was already up in his 80s, so he may be not with us anymore. I have no idea. Here's Murray Rawson, and this is the guy I love. He said, we had talking to Chief Buffalo Tiger is his name. He talked to the chief about the Book of Mormon. The chief interrupted his message, and he says that we had a war long ago with the light-skinned people around the Great Lakes. We conquered them. We got so much respect for the warrior chief that we buried him at the Mount de Oswego, which is in New York State. We don't discuss this very much because it's an embarrassment to us. President Rawson asked, why embarrassed? He said, our history is written upon metal plates and buried in the hill of New York, but we don't know which hill. And he was pitching this at the Missionary Training Center in Provo. Murray Rawson. Good man. Seneca Elder talks about the war around the Great Lakes, New York in particular, about a major confrontation. Different color skin. These people lost the fight. We won the fight. And we had a thing called the Wapanu. That was something that the Meso guys do attack One Hills people on. It kind of seems in the Book of Mormon, if you read it too quickly, that when Mormon gathers all his troops, he says he got 230,000 soldiers. And they tell everybody there's no way 230,000 soldiers can stand on the Hill Cumorah. And they're absolutely correct. But the point is, they didn't. Mormon was in the first position up front with his 10,000. The remaining 220 were scattered around the surrounding Drummond hilltops and valley fortifications. And I can support that through the archaeology of Western New York. And that's why I know that. And here's the second testimony why that's true. Because with Moroni and his 10,000, they got wiped out at Cumorah, at Hill Cumorah. And it says, it came to pass that my men were hewn down, even my 10,000 who were with me. And I fell wounded in the midst, and they passed by me that they did not put into my life. Now, if you know anything at all about ancient history, if you win a battle, and the battle is complete, and there's nowhere else to do or no one else to fight, the winning soldiers stay, and they glean from the dead. They strip them from weapons, clothing, anything of value. And had they done so, Mormon would not have been left alive because they killed the wounded. Nobody is spared. But they didn't because they had to go on to the next. Good to go?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. So for Western New York, here's the archaeology that backs that. Squire went up to Western New York with a team, and they found over 200 fortified hilltops in Western New York, all around the Hill Cumorah. So my point is, I am convinced it was not one battle, it was not one day. It took several days. Cumorah was one fight, and then there was another. And they may have all happened before Cumorah. Maybe Cumorah was the last fight, but I don't think so, because they went on to another, and he was alive. He was not put to death, and he was able to then do those final recordings that we get from our Book of Mormon, because they passed him by, because they went to the next group of 10,000, and so on and so on and so forth. And this is where you find it. Aboriginal Miners, New York, E.G. Squire, 1849. James Talmage, who was a geologist by profession, while in New York, where he spent a lot of time, he surveyed the surrounding soils. The soils of the surrounding area can be very rich in calcium and phosphate content, and the soils, particularly adjacent to the hill Cumorah, with further investigation, discovered there was a lack of these elements in the land, which lay further than a few miles in radius in direction from the hill. To him, this discovery was indicative of the fact that there was decaying of bones of the Nephite and Lamanite armies that had perished there. Now, the Meso guys will not accept this, because Talmage, his actual survey work that he did on the scientific part for the geology thing, it's never come to the surface. And until they see that, they won't accept us. They just say, well, we're not sure what he found, et cetera, and they just kind of blow him off. I was given the same talk in Layton, Utah, talking about this very thing, about the dust, the white dust being 2 to 3 miles out and then dropping off every direction. So it covered that area, and that's where the other 10,000 were scattered in various positions all around the hill. So there's killing going on all around the area, 2 or 3 miles out. And that's where the forts are, primarily. So while I'm talking, and when I finished my talk, a family came up and said, our grandpa and uncle worked the field on the other side of Cumorah, that red circle. And that was virgin territory when they started to plow it up. And they kicked up a white dust. And they took that white dust into a state agricultural department, had it tested, and it came back. It was decomposed human bone. Now, these guys live in Orem. I've got their address, and they just said, have anybody contact us. We got the data, and we'll show it to anybody. And they're dead serious. They said they're convinced that the Cumorah is here. It's not down there. And the white dust is real that Talmage talked about, because they found it. So, again, a nice validation.
Wayne, you think there's virgin, untilled, unplowed land anywhere around there? That they
I think there probably is.
Probably.
It was probably going to be private. You'd have to go do a lot of investigating.
Yeah.
And find some way where maybe like trees that popped up, you have to try to plow between the trees, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
It won't be an open field. I mean, it could be a pasture, but that'd be pretty rare.
Right.
Now, I was on the bus, tour bus, oh golly, I don't know, 2017, 2018, I'm not sure. It's been a while. Matt and Lori Henderson were on the bus, and we told stories while we were on the bus, of course, having a lot of fun. And Matt tells us this story because he was working for the church. And him and a bunch of the men with their wives and kids were working on Hill Cumorah, and their film crews, and they were taking what's called B-roll film. They're just shooting film that could be used in any type of movie the church wanted to put out. I mean, anything you can think of, they're taking film all day long. But their kids were allowed to play all over Hill Cumorah. Well, at the end of one evening, one of the kids didn't come back. And they put out a search party for the kid. And they finally found him. The earth had broke away, and the kid fell into an 11-foot deep hole. Luckily, he wasn't hurt. And they eventually lowered a rope, got him tied up, got him out of there, okay? So if you take I took some more pictures, I should say, he did. I blew him up. There's your 11-foot fall. But notice the wall. The wall is stacked limestone and has been created underground. My point is, Hill Cumorah is a geologic junk pile. It is not a natural hill, which means the cave or cavity, as you want to call it, for all the records, it has to be built. It's got to be a big room. It's got to be a vault, because the ground is unstable. You've got odd-sized rocks above you and all different places that could collapse at any time. So there's another shot, a little close up. So I asked Matt. I said, "Okay, so did you go in?" "No, we didn't go in." I said, "What? What do you mean you didn't go in?" "No, we didn't go in." "Well, you gotta be kidding me. If I was there, you would have heard one word, Geronimo. I'd have jumped in. There's no way you could have kept me out of that hole." And then he tells me the worst part. He said, "Yeah, we dropped a camera in and we could see shelving over near the wall." but there was nothing on it. They were bare shelves. And he said in the far corner, there was a dark recess. It's probably a tunnel going off. Oh my gosh. I said, you're killing me, man. And you guys didn't go in? He said, yeah, and then we told the physical that rep guys came up and they put a steel plate over it. And he said, for a couple of years, you could go there and we'd bounce a stick on it. We could still hear the plate, boom, boom, boom. But he said, eventually, they took away the plate. They filled the hole full of dirt, and they covered it over with trees. And this is just down from the monument on that one side, just down a little ways, not too far. And I know where it is. I took one of the rods and I found it. I know exactly where it is. Besides that, I was there with Matt and Lori, and they showed me where it was besides. So it was just, oh, what a deal. So, you know, I tell everybody, on a moonlit night, in March or April, there's nobody on the hill. I need 2 guys with strong backs, 2 pry bars, and we're in about 30 minutes. Who wants to go?
I'll go.
Yeah, I'm there.
There you go.
We'll all go.
Oh,
We'll all
these guys
go.
are the right age.
I know.
We'll even bring Dwayne.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Dwayne.
Yeah. Isn't that awesome? And they didn't go in. Oh my gosh. They're killing me.
So,
What did they think?
There doesn't seem like any reason
They
to
didn't
fill
get it?
that. To
They
fill it
would.
up. I can't think of any reason why they would choose to fill it up.
No, that's what happened. Now, this comes from the Journal of James Talmage. Talmage was best friends with Professor William Mills, who was the head archaeologist for the state of Ohio. And man, I wish he was still there today. In Talmage's journal, he writes down what Mills tells him about this whole scenario. Now listen to this very carefully. The political boundaries defining the state of Ohio was once inhabited by 2 distinct people, representing 2 cultures, a higher and a lower. These 2 cultural types or distinct peoples were generally in a state of hostility one toward the other, the lower culture being more commonly the aggressor and the higher the defender. From a careful collating of data, it is demonstrated that the general course of migration through the area now defined as the state of Ohio was inward from the west and outward towards the east. The war begins at 322, the final. So they're leaving Zarahemla, they're going across their turf. They have to go in basically an east to the northeast direction until they get all the way up to, guess where? Oh, come on. And the war is over at 385. There it is. And of course, 421, Moroni comes back and says, farewell. I mean, now think about that. This is 1917. The guy has no GPR. He has no LiDAR. I mean, all he's got is shovels and dirt and making sense of what he's looking at. And he figured out that the hunter-gatherer people were a separate group of people from the mound builders, and that they were at odds with each other. But today, they'll tell you the mound builders and the hunter-gatherers are all one and the same people. But not according to this guy in 17 because of what he had seen. But the new guys are changing all of it. They're homogenizing the whole thing into one big happy family. And it's really, it's just so unfortunate. So unfortunate. Now I got this guy, which is really good. This is Arthur Parker. He's half Seneca. Became an archaeologist. And he talks about how the Iroquois, he calls them by name, followed the mound builders into western New York. I mean, oh my gosh, that is wonderful language. And they came in through Lake Erie and along the Allegheny River. That's the narrow way they crawled in, right there. They're coming to western New York, okay? Right there, all right? Now, here's the cool part. After the Algonquin people had established themselves along the Atlantic seacoast, which were few in numbers according to the Book of Mormon, and the country back of it, some of the mound-building tribes of the Ohio region pushed into western New York, and thereafter followed several waves of Iroquois. The mound-building people did not occupy so much of this region, but where they did leave any evidence of themselves, it is plain to the archaeologists that the mound builders who lived here for the shortest period of all have left such abundant traces, such thick refuge deposits, and so many relics of their material culture that they appear to have not only lived on the land, but to have actually used it. There's your source. Now, what's he telling us here? When the call came at 322 to abandon Zarahemla, They also had to abandon Manti. And they're going across in the towns, all the way across Indiana, all the way across Ohio into Bountiful, picking up everybody they could. And what did they do on the way? They took everything they possibly could to carry with them. In other words, that old cliche, they took everything but the kitchen sink with them, because they knew they weren't going back. They were going to make a new homeland in western New York. They were familiar with the land of many waters. They knew what it was. They knew about Cumorah land, and they thought they could hold them off there because of the narrow neck, and because of also the narrow pass, another narrow pass, with the Allegheny River and Lake Erie. But it didn't, of course, we know it didn't work. But that's why there's so much evidence there, because Hopewell brought everything with them they possibly could to make the journey. Just that simple. And so, around 400 AD, Hopewell culture begins to decline for an unknown reason. Archaeologists hypothesize that there was a cultural collapse in the community, shift in hunting, gathering, and war, which may have forced Hopewell societies to become more secluded for survival. Earthen mounds became less prominent, and their trading routes diminished in this period. I'm going to show this just once because everybody always asks about this. Just real quick, my narrow pass, as you can see there, West Sea, South Sea. That's because right here, let me get around to it, get it all up there. Below Lake Michigan is what's called the Tolleson Beach Line, or the Green Marsh. 100 AD extended deep into Indiana. The Great Black Swamp was still here in the 1870s. It was drained by Europeans. It went all the way. That's Fort Wayne, Indiana, right here on the tip. And you go there today, they saved a little teeny point of the swamp. They saved it. It's right there. And both these areas were full of serpents, 3 poisonous snakes in North America. They lived there in great numbers. The Indians would not go into this area if their deer were to travel into the swamp. They wouldn't go in there. But this creates a pass. And this was my geologist friend out of Oregon called me up when she retired and told me about this. I didn't know anything about the swamp. I mean, the Great Marsh, but I didn't know about the Great Black Swamp. This one I knew about because Ohio archaeologists have done the work here. And they know this is all the way over here, and that Ohio was underwater way up here in the north. You see, here, Columbus is right about here. The fortifications and all the structures are all down here. Because right up here, this even ran a little bit deeper in a couple of places on the ancient shorelines. Heartland Temple was high ground. It was always above the water. Of course, here's your hill, Cumorah. So for me, here's the narrow neck, because Ezra tells us that where the narrow neck is, the sea must divide the land. East Sea and South Sea touch because of the Niagara River. But down here, this is just a pass. I believe the pass and the neck are 2 different locations in the Book of Mormon. Now, that's just my take on it. Okay. Also, the West Sea could also, there's in the Book of Mormon, it's called West Sea South. Emptying out here is the Illinois River, trickles way down here. Right about down here, there's a big flat prairie that looks like it could have been actually totally flooded, but then connected all the way up by the Illinois River. So when it talks about West Sea South, there could actually be a large body of water here during the Book of Mormon times. Very, very possible. That's just something to consider when you read that description about West Sea South. Look down here. You'll find that big spot where it could have been there. So I just want to show that real quick because everybody's going to ask about it. And this is a whole talk by itself. So I want to go into the final comments. What did Joseph know? In the beginning, there was one hill, period. It's totally demonstrated. Joseph tells Oliver Cowdery to write 8 letters. He wants all 8 letters to go out to the saints. Joseph approves all these letters. And in letter 7, it is completely told that the big battle fought was between the 2 hills at Cumorah. That's where the Jaredites ended. That's where the Nephites ended. And it's all there in black and white. And this got published. Our LDS are fully aware of letter 7. And for some reason, it's not well known out in Utah. So I don't know what happened, but it just doesn't get talked about. And then voice of warning, Joseph is dead now. Pratt writes his own little missionary book. But down there he says, look at the hill. He says, there's a hill called Cumorah. It's situated in Ontario County, township of Manchester, the state of New York, North America. So, he must have been talking to Joseph. I mean, there it is. Pretty straightforward. And then, of course, we've got his mother talking how if this was family home meeting, we would have had the kids there all the time, talking about their mode of dress, how they traveled, the cities they built, how they fought their wars, the food they ate, how they worshiped religiously. I mean, Joseph was teaching his family at night over the table, the kitchen fire. What a treasure to be able to hear that. And down here we've got Wilford Woodruff and John Taylor testifying to all the spiritual teachers, angels and prophets that came and visited Joseph and taught him the things that he knows. And of course, I give all the sources right there. Before Brigham Young died, this is in the Journal Discourses, volume 19. He told a story about Joseph and Oliver, but he got the story from Oliver, matter of fact, how they had entered the hill many times, not just once, to go and either get, retrieve, or return gold plates. And then how they went in, the sword of Laban was there, they saw the Leahona, and when they returned the actual set of gold plates, there was a messenger there to meet them, assumed it's Moroni, probably was, and all that was covered up. But he wanted people to know that this repository was in this location. It's not down in Central America, period. And of course, the big giveaway, the very first mission of the church, I mean, right after the church was formed, what does Joseph do? He takes Oliver Cowdery, Parley Pratt, Zebba Peterson, Peter Whitmer Jr. He tells them to go preach the gospel to the Lamanites residing in the west. And the west means the valley of the Ohio. It is not west of the Mississippi. Even though they're being hauled out there into reservations, in their day, the west was that territory from Appalachian Mountains all the way to the Mississippi River. And he says, revealing to them the sacred book with the history of their forefathers. And you get a bigger account in the history of Church Volume 1, 118 and 120. And there's the Indians, that's where they lived. Notice the Shawnee, but he's got his head. All the Shawnee wore turbans, not feathers. This right here, of course, Rochester, dear sirs, I was somewhat disappointed on receiving my paper with only a part of my letter inserted in it. The letter which I wrote you for publication, I wrote by the commandment of God, and I am quite anxious to have it all laid before the public, for it is of importance to them. When you go to the newspaper, only that first line is in there. They left everything else out. And so here's what Joseph had in that letter that was supposed to go out to all his readers. The Book of Mormon is a record of the forefathers of our western tribes of Indians. By it, we learn that our western tribes of Indians are descendants from that Joseph who was sold into Egypt, and that the land of America is a promised land unto them. How easy is that? And then the Wentworth letter, this was the big one too, because as you guys read in my magazine, you'll find out this was left out of the Joseph Smith manual when we had the manuals of the presidents of the church. This was edited out of that Joseph Smith manual. And I taught this a lot. The principal nation of the second race fell in the battle towards the close of the 4th century. The remnant are the Indians that now inhabit this country. Joseph is standing in Nauvoo, Illinois. He's in this country. That's the United States of America. Again, it's very plain. I don't know how you could misconstrue this for Ecuador or Belize or Yucatan. I don't get it. I don't know how you could do that. And then, of course, we got Dr. Nibley. The Book of Mormon is a history of this related primitive church. One may well ask what kind of remains the Nephites would leave us from their more virtuous days. A closer approximation to the Book of Mormon picture of Nephite culture is seen in the earth and palisade structures of the Hopewell and Adena culture areas, rather than in the later stately piles of stone in Mesoamerica. Page 272, volume 8, if you got the collection. Okay? Couple of scriptures to close. And it meaneth that the time cometh after all house of Israel have been scattered and confounded, that the Lord God will raise a mighty nation among the Gentiles, even upon the face of this land. And then shall our seed be scattered. And after our seed is scattered, the Lord God will proceed to do a marvelous work among the Gentiles, which shall be a great work unto our seed. Wherefore, it is likened unto their being nourished by the Gentiles, and being carried in their arms upon their shoulders. But behold, this land, said God, shall be a land of my inheritance, and the Gentiles shall be blessed upon the land. And this land shall be a land of liberty unto the Gentiles, and there shall be no kings upon the land, who shall raise up unto the Gentiles. And I will fortify this land against all other nations. So ask yourself, where is this land? What's the secret? Well, here's how I look at it. As I understand the scriptures, the promised land anciently, the Garden of Eden had to be there. Adam lived there. Adam on was there. Enoch lived there, and Noah lived there. When I read my Book of Mormon, it tells me it's a nation of Gentiles. It's going to be a land of liberty. It's going to be a land of a free nation. The New Jerusalem will be built there. No kings allowed in the land. Nations of the world will flow into it, and it will be protected against all other nations. So I'm going to give you guys one more clue if you haven't figured it out where this land is. Here is the final clue. In the beginning, there was one hill. I keep beating that drum. And I am a one hill guy. And they're going to allow me to show my flyer, by the way. State president approved it.
Hey, that's great.
So I got a flyer for you. They're just up front. They have to come get it. I can't pass them out. They want to come get it, they can. So I report, you decide. That's it.
All right.
Nice.
Love it.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Very cool.
Excellent.
Well, one quick question. For
Yeah, fire.
You know how the
Only
seas
full.
came down because the water was higher?
What came down?
The sea
The
level
West
was
Sea.
Oh, in
lower.
Ohio?
Oh,
Or,
Yeah.
or the lakes?
The lakes.
The lakes, okay. Yeah.
Did they find mounds where that water was?
Oh, no. No, no.
No mounds.
No, none.
yeah.
And what's even better,
So that means that the
let
water
me,
was there.
I'll get a copy
let's
of
see,
it.
let me just,
There's more
oh,
evidence of that.
shoot. Let me show you, just, yes, a really cool thing, I think I got it here. Let's see, India,
And do the geologists
As
or
far as-
did they agree that that was underwater at
what totally?
relatively recently?
Yep. I had a geologist give me the one from Illinois, I didn't know anything about that, the Great Marsh,
Oh.
that was a gift.
Yeah.
That's what they do, this back. This is what's really, really represents.
Yeah.
And that's why they
Yeah, there it is, okay.
they
I
have.
mean, let me just hold up. I got a couple here, just a couple quick bizarre ones.
They were led by
If they,
Legion.
because
Italians.
if they were done, they would go and scavenge it through it.
Right,
Take their
yeah.
bows and jewelry,
No weapons.
make sure they're dead.
I got a couple extra guys down there, just to, you just want to just peek at them real quick.
Sure.
Let me just, let's see, slideshow, we go. From the slide. Oh crap, I'm back to the beginning. Bingo, hold on. This is supposed to be kind of a little faster.
We'll go back out of your presentation
End show.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
and scroll down and just
Yeah, that's
select the one you want to start
I
at.
think I know how to drive this thing right now. Oops.
You're doing good.
Okay. Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, first of all, Manti, Joseph, you guys aware Joseph identified Manti? Are you all aware of that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go to present from correct slide.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, there's Manti. There's I think there's 4 guys in journals that back this up. Joseph telling that that is the place for the city of Manti, but south of Manti, the waters of Mormon are somewhere, and I have picked Big Springs because it was a fountain of pure water, what they called it in the Book of Mormon, right? A fountain of pure water. And of course, by doing that, you look at this guy here. Here's Big Spring. And if you haven't ever been there, it's absolutely beautiful. The colors are just like the Caribbean. It's absolutely gorgeous. And the water is bubbling up right here. Just come up out of the earth, and it flows 279 million gallons per day, 7 days a week. Just think of that. And it creates its own river called the Current River, and it flows off into eventually into the Missouri. And over here, along the bank, there's a trail here. You walk the trail real slow, and you look down. Like if it's like noon or 1 o'clock, you get there. The sun is directly on the water. Guess what you see in the water? Great big rainbow trout. I mean, 12 and 18 inches, just hanging in the sunlight there. They're sleeping. That's what they're doing. But there's no fishing signs all over. So I'm sorry.
Are those the dogfish?
Is that?
Those godfish?
You know,
No.
you never know. So there's a couple more here. Let's see. Okay, here's your question that you just asked me. All right, this is the pass between the Great Marsh and the Black Swamp, and you notice the red dots. The red dots are Hopewell sites, all identified by archaeologists. I have the actual work on all of that. And notice the black dots. No mounds in the black dots. These are counties. Okay. There's no mounds in the black dots. And then you go and you do this. I'm showing the different areas. Indiana, Michigan, Ohio covers 3 states. All right. Okay. Great Black Swamp. Just drop it in. Goodbye. See what's happening? Now we're going to drop in the Great Marsh. Watch those black dots disappear. Now look at the connection. Lake Michigan, see the red dots? You got a solid wall of forts all the way back and forth. The Great Black Swamp all the way up to Lake Michigan. You got red forts blocking that
That's
passage.
cool.
Yeah, that's just a killer. And that comes right off their own archaeology. I've got the actual work in all 3 of those spots. I've got the work on the counties. No mounds.
Yeah, that's compelling.
You know, and so I don't know how the red dot. I don't know how many are there. I just put a dot that they are there. They're present. So how many there are, I don't know. Okay. I thought that's pretty cool. Let's see. I got some more down here. Let's see what else I got. Something else. That's a good thing. That's a quote out of that's pretty cool. That's just a good quote. And understanding. Who's that elephant one again? Demon on. See what else I got down here. Not too much. Oh yeah, that's a pretty cool map. Just shows the areas. You see, like 500 BC, they're there, but they're gone by 400 AD. And then up in Illinois, they're there at 300 BC, gone at 400. That's what that's all about. 550 for coming into East Tennessee, and then of course they swing up to Iowa, and 550 for Florida science camera. I just want to show that so that people understand. And there's Ohio, 100 BC they start, and they're gone by 400 AD. Okay, and then 400 AD, it's over. That's New York. New York starts at 100 AD when the Hopewells show up. So you see, when you go to each state, those are the dates you get. That's why you think, well, gee, I thought the Hopewell was only, because Ohio dominates everything, people think, well, it's all the Hopewells 100 BC, and that's not the case. Not the case at all.
Now, in 1827 in Palmyra, this was very common knowledge, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
Joseph would have known all this. Like he probably learned this
Yeah.
at home and stuff, right?
That's my argument for that 30 degree north deal,
Right.
right?
Yeah, the seeds.
He just says 30 degrees. I mean, he could have easily said that, and of course, we're thinking Western Hemisphere, so the guy just went straight south.
Joseph was very familiar with Florida.
Yeah.
He knew it like the back of his hand.
Whatever. Anyway, there's the big migration. And then, I don't know what else I got here. This is stuff I save, I put in, I pull out, I make things different. I don't know if there's anything of value here. Some of it's duplication. Oh, here's a good one coming up. Here's one that's really a favorite of mine. That's pretty good too. Okay, that's about the Great Lodge Mound in the middle of the temple lot that the Indians put together. But check this out. I love this one. 1658, people. The guy on the left, that's a French trapper. Okay? Now he has already met this chief some time ago. Okay? And the chief told him, they became friends. He said, so if you come back in 6 months or a year later, I mean, they didn't get around that often, and I'm not here. If you make this sign, my second in command, my second chief, he will know you've been introduced to us and you can sleep here for protection with my people. You guys see the sign that they're making?
Yeah.
We all got it, right?
Yeah.
When is that painted?
Yeah, who did this artwork?
Oh, I got the book at home. I don't remember the artist. But this is common knowledge. You see, around the Great Lakes, all the Indians, if they're out gathering food and they bump into each other, not friendly, they make their right arm to a square, and they say, "Oh, that means I come in peace. I bear no arms." And then they all go about their business and do their food gathering. They don't bother each other. And if they're going to get into a fight, they usually give each other 4 days to prepare. And we're going to see you on the morning of the 5th day. And if you're not there, we're going to kill you. But they give you a 4-day warning. And then their time over a length of distance is divided in groups of 400 years. That's pretty cool. So 4 is very important to the natives. And by the way, they never attacked people at night, and they never scalped until it started from the French and the English. That's how, they paid people to go kill Indians and bring back scalps and get your bounty. So they didn't do that. They thought that was horrible. And then here's the Jaredite dates for the Copper Country. Look at that. 2470 BC, 850 BC. Jaredite timeline, all for the Keweenaw. That's the Copper Range. I mean, you just can't, that's just wonderful.
Is that Michigan?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Upper
it's
Michigan.
Upper
It should be
Michigan.
Upper Wisconsin, but that's okay. We'll let it slide right now. When I get to be president, I'm gonna change that state line. I'm gonna get rid of that. Tell Michigan to take a hike. Yeah. And then, of course, I just went through single draft, 90 days. I got stuff on Joseph. It's really cool. And boy, she really slams Joseph here.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. It's funny. And, of course, who wrote this book?
Complicated marriage.
Well, proposed authors, there they are. You know the drill. And for no reason, yeah. We've seen that before. This is kind of good here. LeGrand Richards responding to a question of Dr. Paul Chesman, director of the Mormon study, UIU's religious program. I heard Brother Callis once say that when Joseph Smith received the place, he got down on his knees before the Lord and said, "Oh God, what will the world say?" And the voice of God came to him, "Fear not, I will cause the earth to testify the truth of these things." That's pretty powerful. And guess what? That's happening right now. It's happening right now. And here's the Mulekite thing. Now, I love this here. It being the place of their first landing. Now, guys, if it was their only landing, the word first would not be there. That means when they picked up Coriantumr, they either took him with them or they stayed there for the 9 moons, refitted their boats. I mean, who wants to be they've been in a boat for 6 months. They probably want to get out of there, you know what I mean? But anyway, they went somewhere else. And where they go, they ended up in Iowa. And here's this again, you've seen that already. I'm just looking what's coming up here. Come on. Okay, oh yeah, this is pretty cool. These are archaeologists, okay? Hopewell went through a long piecemeal degeneration, which may have lasted 200 to 500 years, ending perhaps about 450 AD. Isn't that great? And it says there will also be a decline in the importance of building large mounds, etc., etc. And then here's that again. Oh, I like this. So this is that deal with the 30 degree south or north, that kind of thing. That's where I had to see that on the way you put it out. So,
What does it say?
well, this is the idea. They're thinking Western Hemisphere, okay? And all of a sudden, a scribe shows up and says, "I heard Joseph say this," and they land on 30 degree parallel. Well, if you got Western Hemisphere, you got to go south, okay? But there's a good chance all Joseph said was 30 degree, period. He didn't say south or north. My point being, if you take that 30 degrees to the north, you end up in Florida. That's my point. It was just a lost benchmark. I think it's gone. It just got lost. What happened? Why did it jump so much?
That was your last slide.
Oh, was that the last one? That's right. Okay. Then, if you want to see some Jerry stuff real quick, it's up to you guys.
Yeah, sure.
Let's see which one. Oh, no, this what I'm going to show you here. You can't film this.
I'll stop it.
This is from Southern England, were noticeable as a comparison to the Ohio. Data the dig site to 1990 BC to 1500 BC. Of course, he was suggesting a pre-Columbian contact in North America. Guess what Paul did? He fired him. The guy was right. He was right. He was on the money. He fired him. He saw what we saw Jaredites. He saw their timeline. And so here's what he saw in merry old England that caused him so much trouble. This is Portsmouth, and here's Avebury. What's the verdict? Same? Not
Yeah.
same.
Very, very, very.
I mean, isn't that incredible?
Not same,
I mean, it's awesome. Just look at that. And the guy was right. He's absolutely correct. And then his buddy, Cheney, he got canned too. Because he went up in New York, looking at the hinges, he said, man, these hinges just look like stuff from England. He says, the Druid barrows of England. This is a perfect description of the ancient sepulchral barrows in the British Isles. That comes from a British archaeologist. He got fired. Unbelievable. Now, there is some good out of all this. The Indiana archaeologists, bless their hearts, have noticed that these hinges are built by the Adena and that they are Hopewell remodeled. Just like we talked about, remember? So they have recognized that the Adena were here a lot longer than the guys in Illinois and Ohio will fess up. They're telling the truth in Indiana. Unfortunately, they don't have a lot of sites to really, bring the hammer home. They've only got a few. They had more, but they've all been leveled. They're ruined. I mean, they're gone. They got plowed down. So this one here is safe. It's still there.
So there's your solstices.
Pardon?
There's your solstices.
Yeah. And then here's the Hopeton Works. You guys have seen that, of course. But here's what happened on the Hopeton Works. You remember? I don't know if you had heard me and Anthony talking about they found a circle outside the circle. Okay, an earlier one, right out here. Okay, north of the circle. And they got up there, and there's the shorelines. Can you see them?
Yes.
Okay. And guess what? There's there's nothing up there.
You look at the landscape, how different.
Because at Lake Erie, it was all down in there. All down in there. One big water. When the Jaredites sailed in, I am convinced Lake Nipissing, which was all 5 lakes, at least a part of it still existed, and that'd be Huron, Ontario, and Lake Erie was still one body of water when the Jaredites sailed in.
Wayne, what was your theory on that slide where it had England? Yeah.
What do you mean theory? So that's the Jaredites. They built that as Beaker people.
Okay.
The Beakers built that site.
Explain Beaker people to me.
Well, they call them Beakers because of their pottery. It's a certain type of pottery.
Okay.
And that same pottery is over here with the Native Americans. Okay. So, and then we find the same. We find necklaces the same. We find arm guards the same on both sides of the water.
Both sides of the Atlantic.
And they came over, and the timing is right. The timing is right. They got in England around 2400 BC or after, and then the Beakers kind of disappeared.
Right.
Well, where'd they go? We don't know. They must come over here.
Awesome.
They sailed away.
We can put this on the internet, right?
Yeah, you can show this.
All right.
Yeah, totally.
Just that one slide.
Absolutely. All right. Ancient shorelines. There you go. And then, yeah.
Mm.
Okay, there's your body of water. How about that? It's rocking.
Which side of the? That's the right side of that path, right?
Oh, it's way over. Yeah, the pass is way over to the left.
To the left. Okay.
So it's to the left. Yeah, because you can't see all of the black swamp sticking out into Indiana.
Right.
Because we're only looking at Ohio.
Okay.
Ripley Hampton of the Jaredites. That's what we call them. All right. The Dean or Jaredites, Potawatomi oral history. Here's their story. This was a big deal. Indian Relations Committee. Milner Hunter went to this, and he brought this report back from the apostles. I read the report, and it was this. This is the report right here. Migrations came from the east. The Indians, Christian, agrees with the Book of Mormon in several respects. People came here were led by the Lord, according to Chief Shupshi. According to the Nephi record, he said that one group of colony came to America about 4,000 years ago in boats like tortoise shells. This migration would compare favorably to the Jaredites. Chief Shupshi explained that their traditions also told of groups of colonists who compared favorably with the Nephites and Mulekites. He also told of the coming of the yellow race.
Not you, Hazel.
Oh, you want what's up?
Check your phone.
I'm good anyway.
No, never
There's the
mind.
coming of the yellow race.
Yeah. They came from the west. That's the Mongols that came over.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're the ones that added to the Algonquins and knocked out the Mound Builders. They came in right at the tail end.
When did the Mongols rule China?
See, that's
right. Notice all the natives.
There's a whole story
The
here.
natives in Alaska and all that. They're Asian.
Fill us in on
That's
that.
the
Tell us.
Mongoloid Asian. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They're the same. But there was a pile of them that came over right at the end of right when the Book of Mormon was ending, and they're the Delaware Indians. They came across the ice sheet. I'll tell you that, and we've got that all recorded. and the Rafinesque did the reporting on it, and I did a DVD on it of this whole migration coming in and how they knocked out. It's awesome stuff. It's all there. That's what I mean. I can't even get in touch with everything that I've got going on. There's just so much stuff. Okay, and then here 8 vessels. This is the actual thing that they show people coming in. This is from the Ojibwe. How people come in and they disperse in the various waters to go here. Here's a map showing 4 of the 8 turtle boats, what they look like. Notice it's east, over to the west, crossing the ocean. These are their ships, and you can go see this up in the University of Toronto. They got this up on the wall. This whole thing, the Algonquin migration, 8 vessels crossing. People that came and visited them. So, Mulekites, same number of vessels of 8. You got to read this book. This book is awesome from Dr. Nibley. You can pick it up used for $9 or $10 online, or buy it new, whichever you want. But he talks about how. Well, here, I'll show it to you. These names, Coriantumr lived with the Mulekites. Jurite language is different than Nephites. Jurite names turn up among the Nephites. Every Nephite with a Jurite name has a Mulekite background. Most every movement against the Nephite state or religion has a Mulekite leader. Jurites made a cultural impression on the Nephites through Mulek centuries later. And then here
was a genius.
Then here, a Nephite bearing the name of Coriantumr, whose father was Zarahemla, a Mulekite. First land settled by the Jurites, Moron, a name of a Jurite king, also a name of a Nephite city, Moroni, meaning belonging to Moron. Ether 9.3 refers to hill Shim being passed by. Amoron, a Nephite, deposits sacred records in the hill Shim for safekeeping. Shim is Jurite. Nehor, land of the Jurite kid, city of Nehor, Jurite, also in the Book of Mormon as Nephite. Nehor, apostate, Nephite, who slew Gideon. Noah, early Jurite king. Noah, a Nephite king. Alma's grandson, Jurite names Shiblon and Coriantumr. That's why all is in that book. It's just awesome. Just awesome. And there they are. There's the guys that caused the trouble.
So, those people that caused the trouble were from Mulekite descent.
No, they're Jurite.
With Jaredite.
Well, either mixed with Jurite or they're pure Jurite, either way, whichever. They probably merged together. And then here's 600 BC. Okay, the war's supposed to be over, right? 600 BC, but 450 BC, we got Adina living right up here, right here, and
Wait, BC?
Huh?
BC?
100 or 50 years later, they're still alive. That's what I'm saying. All the Jurites didn't die. That's my point. And where did they come ashore? Here's Ripleyanta. This is the old Lake Nipissing. All that was water. All that was water.
That's the older copper culture.
Yeah. Verse 90. I'm just trying to get this in bountiful desolation and bountiful. I'm in the dream
Was
of
Bountiful a land or a city or both?
It's a land for sure. I'm not sure if Bountiful is a city. Maybe I'm not sure. And I like this here. And the Lord warned Amnon in the dream that he should depart out of the land, or Amnon depart out of the land with his family and travel many days. Came over and passed by the hill of Shim, and came over by the place where the Nephites were destroyed. And from thence eastward, he came to a place which was called Abram, the seashore. So I said, well, it's got to be close by, somewhere. Okay?
So when Joseph and Oliver had to take all the plates out of the depository that was in the Hill Cumorah, they probably took it to the Hill Shim.
Could be. I have no idea. Copper. We just see what the copper culture, Jurites, Kilo, something like that. This is the key. This is Moss City. Up on top of that, Lake Nipissing was, for these, were up on top. These mines here were being dug when Lake Nipissing was present. They're up at 1,100 foot elevation. And today, of course, it's all the way down to 600. These are very old mines. And to me, these are pre-flood. These would be Adam's people. Big copper pits. Just go one and leap to the next. Dig up copper. Pits everywhere. And some of this one here runs over a mile long. One big trench. Just took out copper all the way through. That's Judy Davis on the left, and that's her son, Bob, standing in the ditch. They have a Minnetonka Lodge up there, that's why I stay around the wall. That's looking into a pit. This is in a pit looking up. Looking into a pit. This pits. Hammerstones. You find places with hammerstones laying around. Once in a while, you find a whole one. I've got one whole one. Otherwise, they're all they're broken. They break and use them. This is my whole one right here. It's a mere 17 pounds.
17 pounds.
Yeah,
Wow.
a 17-pounder. Imagine swinging that.
Take a Jared, I just swing it.
I think so. Here's Isle Royale. They got 10,000 pits out there as well, all copper. These guys here are standing in copper pits. The ground is so thick with foliage, I have them spread out. Each person is standing in a pit. Of course, they're all filled in over the years, you know.
Is
Only
the
about 80.
copper
What's that?
in like veins or something? What,
Oh, it's just all over. It's everywhere. You
Like
can't
in-
you can't use a Melitech up there because it
How
goes
do you-
off.
Like in nuggets, or is
Yeah.
it?
Solid chunks that show up, and they bust them off.
Hmm.
Pure copper. Pit after pit. It'll show a bunch of pits.
That's awesome.
There's that date again. Okay, now here's stuff that you can't. This is one of our sites that we go to in New York on a New York tour. This is about a 20-foot diameter pile of stone, and we were convinced it was a tower. And we have 12 of these, and they're spaced out exactly every 200 feet. And this is protecting a shoreline. So we don't know what else was there, but it's every 200 feet. We've got the same pile of stone. It's incredible.
would they have that like in the, like on the shorelines, all about those walls?
Yeah?
I mean, they're newer, but protecting the beach.
Okay. This is, these are cairns. This has actually got bodies in it, and the men are buried here head to foot, all the way across, head to foot, head to foot. And then we got standing stones in Beaver Island, raising the stone, and of course you saw this one. This is
Yeah,
at Fort
yeah.
Ancient. That's one over the cliff. Here's one in Pennsylvania. This is a 10-footer. It's been broke off and pushed into a creek. Then I just show a couple of mounds for comparison. We might be able to see this one tomorrow. I think I can find it. It's real close, but a couple of screwy roads. I think I can get there. And yeah, that's it. Pretty much all the same.
Yeah.
So hope that's beneficial.
Little extra there. That was nice.
That's great.
Yeah.
Is that all the other information that's all new since in the last 4 years or since COVID, right?
Oh yeah, pretty much so.
That's awesome.